It's been a journey, a very interesting one through all the years. And you may think, well, I was always like this way, but I can tell you this, that I used to be a skeptic. I used to be one of those who would say, what I can't see, I'm not interested because it's all woo woo stuff. Tonight, what I'd like to bring to the light is just that there are things that we do that we don't actually realize that they are actually, we can't see it, but we use it, we believe it, we accepted it, and it works. And so things that maybe you're taking for granted, or you're even using yourself, but you never really thought about the science behind it. One of the things that I was introduced to before I got into the real energy work was the Nikken the magnetic products, Nikke, and the Japanese company that people even today are using their products to filter their water. They had far infrared products, which was a special fiber that would capture the energy of the sun, and then miraculously, it seemed, garments made out of it. I had a long johns out of that, and I still have a blanket that looks like cotton, but it isn't. And when you use it, whether you need the heat or you need to be cooled down because you're hot, it actually keeps you at the right temperature, because in front of a fireplace, if you have the long johns on, it would keep you cool, and yet still you are in front of the fireplace. But if you went out on the ski slopes, you would be warm because it would radiate that energy back to you. And so that was one of the things that captured me before, even when I was thinking, I can't see that, don't believe it, but I did believe in magnetic energy. And so magnetic energy, Nikken had a special design where the magnetic forces, because of the design, always is in movement. And so many people use the mag steps, which is just the foot insoles, for back pain. It helps tremendously for that. Some people find that when they use it, their foot odor disappears. And so these are energetic things that there are reasons for it. It is that these biofields, these therapies, they work. And they work for just common people, just normal people. They work for no matter who you are. And for me, what I actually got benefit from was a beautiful pearl necklace that looked like pearls, but it had the magnets in there. And I think it had some of the far infrared. I could be mistaken. But a beautiful set of pearls. And what I noticed was when my energy was really low, if I didn't sleep for a week, because I was giving a course, this special necklace would actually be so hot at the end of the day that it would almost burn my hands when I took it off my neck. And other days when I wasn't tired, it would be fine. It would just be normal, where you wouldn't feel any heat coming off of it. But on those particular days, during that particular week, these pearls were so hot. I knew I was my body was somehow getting energized by these little pearls, because I wasn't tired. I was able to go through that whole week with almost no sleep, without feeling tired. And after that week, yes, I did crash. So these things, Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathic remedies. And when I started using homeopathic remedies back in 1990, when my eldest was going through some terrible times with allergies to antibiotics because of ear infections from daycares that she would pick up, I got into homeopathic remedies. And those remedies, people would tell me that I was poisoning my children, because and other people would say, oh, they're just placebos, they don't work, because if you test it, there is no substance in there other than sugar granules. Because I don't have it here, I usually do, but they come in little vials, and the process is an act of potentialization, where you shake this little tube. Imagine this is a tube, and you're shaking it, and you put 100 mils of the substance in there, and then you shake it, and then you throw out 99 mils, and you keep on doing that for 600 times if it's a 6C potency. And then this thing has the qualities to actually heal you if you have those symptoms that person exhibits when they're highly sensitive, and produces those symptoms, and it will cure that. So Samuel Hahnemann, founder of homeopathic remedies, which is now found in all sorts of health food stores and the grocery stores in some places, and works beautifully for shock trauma, and all that is used in some emergency rooms, wards, in the hospitals. There was one particular doctor decades ago who practiced homeopathy, and the Queen of England uses homeopathic. The royal family uses homeopathic doctors who are specialized in homeopathy. Why? Because it works, and it's all energy, right? There's a vital force that we need to keep above when we want to keep healthy. We keep our vital energy higher than that minimum vital force we need to keep healthy, and then we'll not get sick. So that's the first thing I want to share, so you can see that maybe you think, oh, the woo isn't for me, but you are dealing with a little bit of woo if you are using homeopathic Nikken magnets or any kind of magnetic products, if you're those kinds of things. And then the second thing is what I want to share about that these all come into play with Sparkle is the heart and body, the heart, brain, mind coherence. And you may say, what is that? Well, I had I have a client, and her name is Ruby, and you may have seen some testimonial videos of her because she was so excited with the results she got. And she had grief from her puppy, actually, who had passed away many months ago, and she was really attached, and she couldn't think, and she was in this space and couldn't do her work. And then gave her a Sparkle session, and what happened in that Sparkle session is all of a sudden she said, instantaneously, you can watch a video on my YouTube channel. She said this fog cleared, and all of a sudden she had instant clarity, and the fog lifted. Well, how did that happen? Well, Bruce Lipton, and in his book, and he studies and talks about epigenetics, he explains it that thoughts and emotions creates stress hormones, which then changes your cells and how your cells react. The HeartMath Institute in California, they have cardiologists who study the brain. And what they found is that when the heart is in coherence, when you're happy and you're breathing, you're relaxed, everything works better, and your body works better, and it affects your physiology. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body. And when you are in coherence, that field becomes healing. And when we do Sparkle, when I do Sparkle, this field expands. And when you are in love, when you are full of gratitude, when you're thankful, it's a signal also that when you're sending love to someone and you think about someone, well, that's heart coherence, because you're feeling good thinking about that person when you're sending them love. And that particular field, when you send that feeling out, someone across the other side of the world sometimes can get that signal. And you know it happens sometimes where you're right, you think about somebody you really love or care about, and all of a sudden you get a phone call or you get a message or something saying, hey, I just thought about you and I want to say hi, or something like that, right? So this is all proving that what many of us sense. HeartMath Institute has done research. They're doing research all the time that proves that the heart broadcasts peace messages faster than the mind can process it. And isn't that a beautiful thing? So when we are now, after what we are putting an intention out, and our mind is in gear with that, and our heart is together with that, that comes together beautiful, because then that's how Sparkle gets that emotion and that feeling and that resonance with that frequency working so that there is this healing response in my clients. So the other part of Sparkle is that in the past and even recently, what I've noticed, what I've observed, is that animals, and actually even leopard sharks, you saw that if you saw the thumbnail for the announcement of this episode, that leopard sharks and stingrays have responded to Sparkle. And what do I mean by that? Well, I was visiting one of the aquariums, and the way I sparkle, I kind of use my fingers, and there's that intention of helping the fish, because the leopard sharks were just fanatically just swimming everywhere in this little tank, and I just started sending energy, thinking that it would be nice to give them a little massage and calm them down so they could get a little treat. And I started to move my hand in just a straight up and down, in and out, forward and back. And then in about a couple minutes, and my cousin was there watching, and she kind of backed away after I was doing this. The sharks, two of them, one came up and just kind of just lined up under me, because they were about 5 feet below where I was standing, and lined up in the same exact line I was working with my fingers. And then right after that, about 2 seconds after, another one came, and they just kind of were parallel to each other, and they stayed there for a while. And my cousin was going, "Don't the sharks have to move to breathe?" And I said, "No, they're fine." And so we left. As we're leaving the exhibition in that aquarium, she says, "Let's go check on the shark." And I had forgotten about them, because I knew they were fine, but we went anyway, and the sharks were still there in the same exact position. So I just went like that, and then they moved, and they were good. So leaving there now, we were walking, and I spied there was a stingray tank, and there were a whole bunch of stingrays in there, and it was a petting tank, so you could put your hand in there and pet them. And so I just stood there again, and my cousin, she says, "I'm going over there, I'm going to sit over there," because I think she was embarrassed by me playing above the tank. So she went over there, and I started doing the same thing. And then amazingly, what happened was the stingrays in the tank lined up across the far side, lined up across the tank in a single file, and then they started heading on the short end of the rectangle. They started heading straight towards me, and as they came up, they would surface their little heads, and they would look at me, and I would look at them, and I would say, "Hey, how are you today? Hi." And I'd pat their little head, and then they'd dive to the right. And the other people, there's a few people at the other side of the tank, and they had to put their hands elbow deep, because the stingrays had dove right under the water, and were like about a foot under the water by then. And so these stingrays kept on coming up, and I got a snapshot because my hands were occupied, right? And I didn't realize my cousin saw it, but at a dinner that night, I was kind of telling some friends of hers about this experience, because it was kind of really cool. And she said it was true, because her friends weren't believing me. And I looked over at her, and I said, "What?" She says, "I saw it. I saw them." I said, "You bugger." Because I said, "Why didn't you come up and take some pictures of it?" Anyways, that was the story of that. And so what you may say, well, that's not, how does that explain anything? Well, heart math coherence fields, they extend beyond the body. And there's also morphic resonance, that if you read up with Rupert Sheldrake, he talks about the morphogenic fields, and that there is this field around that has this information in there. And the other thing is, if what I'm doing isn't doing anything, well, why did the stingrays, I couldn't tell them come and say hello to me. I'm not a stingray whisperer. So all I was doing, I was sending energy in, and I was saying, "Hey, come, this is my gift to you for today. Enjoy this healing energy." And the stingrays, they couldn't communicate with me. They didn't know that I was there to give them some energy. And there they were, coming up one by one, and all I was doing was sparkle. And so, placebo, if you say, well, placebo, it's a placebo effect. Well, fish can't think, and it works on babies. Sparkle works on babies as well. And that's why I could discount homeopathic remedies as being a placebo, because babies also get results from taking homeopathic remedies. The babies don't know that the homeopathic, these little tablets, are supposed to help them, but they will stop having problems with teething. They'll stop screaming because their teeth are hurting, and so their fevers will go away if you give them the right remedy, because it's not a placebo, it actually is an energetic remedy. Animals don't believe that what I'm doing is supposed to help them, but my cousin's dog would, when I'd start to work and sparkle the dog, he would actually turn over and lie back and turn again, as right on where I was sending energy to him, and he would just keep on turning until he had enough, and that was it. So they don't believe in energy, they can feel it. What else do I want to tell you about? I discovered art when my mom passed away Christmas Eve of 2015, and I discovered art because I did that for my own healing. And of that, what came out of that was that I ended up producing this deck of cards. And the deck of cards, I took it to a conference, and this lady said, could I please see it? She wasn't a seeing person because she had a seeing eye dog, and she was reading her notes in Braille. And I put it in her hand, placed it in her hand, and then she said, I like that. And I put another one, I really like that card. And she bought a deck of cards from me, and her expression when I asked her what she liked about it was that every card had its own energy, and it was fun and meaningful to experiment because it made her house feel lighter and brighter, and she thanked me for the deck. So those were just gel pens, and now what that led to was I paint in acrylic and in mixed media with crystals in some of my paintings, which is healing art. People buy my paintings because they feel better. One person even said it made her feel good, so much so that she felt like going to work on a dark winter's night because she hadn't felt good in months. And it was just this little 4-inch by 4-inch painting, and it was in green, and she hated green, but she said, but this painting is making me feel good. So off she went, she purchased it, and she took it home and sent me a picture of it on her office wall, which was a forest green. She was a financial advisor, and I think that was just her office at work, and that was the color of the wall. And there it was on her wall, bringing her joy and happiness. So that was on the frequency side. And then one day I met this lady, and she's intuitive, more so than me, in that she gets messages, and she sees things. I don't actually see things. I really have a knowing. That's how I connect. And she expressed to me what were in each of the layers of my painting. So I wrote a book with her, and in the process of writing the book, she was conducting readings of the paintings as we sat in my art studio. And in that process, I had never sat down and looked at my paintings before. I just painted them, I'd put them aside and started another one. And as I was sitting there, all of a sudden, all I could see on this painting was oranges, just all oranges. And then in the next moment, all I'd see is green, a lime green. Then the next moment, and I said to Tamara, Tamara Henderson, I said, Tamara, are you seeing what I'm seeing? I'm just seeing oranges, and now I'm seeing blues, and now she says, uh-huh. I said, what? She says, uh-huh. You're seeing exactly that? She says, uh-huh. So my question was a painting processing us, or were we processing the painting? And I think somehow the painting was communicating with us. You may think, well, that's again far-fetched that a painting could do that. But again, Rupert Sheldrake talks about morphic resonance. You've heard perhaps about cymatics, which is frequency forming matter, where sound frequencies, the healing frequencies, solfeggio frequencies, and they've done studies and they say it actually changes cellular structure. And we have the different research, all sorts of research going on around this. So they don't just hang on walls, these paintings of mine. They broadcast frequencies the same way music broadcasts sound. Every brushstroke is a frequency carrier, and that's why my people say that the paintings, they feel something from it. The ones who have that ability to sense, because some people, like I was before I opened up to this to the feeling side of myself. I never used to feel, and then after I started on this journey, which was before my mother passed. It was actually when I hurt my knee on a ski accident, and in a ski accident, and I went on this path to learn how to heal my knee without surgery. And I started to be able to feel energy, and it's a journey that can be very fast, or it can take a while, depending on how fast or how much you can tune into yourself, right? So there's another story just recently where one of my clients, as I was working on her, I usually use a green screen like I have behind me here now, but a couple days ago, she was in pain, so she asked for a session, and I was sitting in my family room where I have one of my paintings, which was intentionally, I set it up just for myself, and I painted it just for myself to embody all the things that I'm striving to do, to create, to help people with. And she said to me, can I ask you a question? Because she sees energy. She's seen energy for her whole entire life, and she's in her 60s now. And she said, well, what's with that painting behind? Can you tell me about it? And I said, well, I painted it for myself, and it's a special painting because it embodies, transcendence. It embodies self-actualization. It embodies healing frequencies, healing intention, it bringing abundance and welcoming all good and miracles and all that in there. And she says, well, the reason she was asking is because my aura around me was a light blue, so light, such a light blue that it was almost white. But it seemed that the painting was interacting with it, because there was something happening with the painting, and it was sending me yellow light. And I said, really? She says, the reason I'm mentioning this is because she's never seen this before. But then, of course, because I always have a green screen, I don't usually work with my paintings behind me. Then a little bit later, she says, that color now, the painting is sending you green. So I said, well, it's for me a witness to what I knew all along, that my paintings do emit frequencies, and people feel good with my paintings in their space. And one particular client of mine, he commissioned a painting, and he's been on the Boss Real Life Matters Bell Fiber TV, stating that this painting had 2.2 times his revenue year over year, and 2.5 times his recruits year over year since he got it. And he said he worked out his numbers. December 2021 is when I delivered it to him. And on January 15th of that next year, he told me that he was trying to figure out what he could attribute the results of his business to, because he had already had income of 30% of what he had brought in the year before. And he said, it's your painting. And I said, huh, really? He says, yeah, it's your painting. That's what's doing it. And he rotates his painting ever so often, because every time you rotate my paintings, if you have a square, you get 8 paintings in one. If you have a rectangle, you get 4 paintings in one, because every time you rotate it, you might sense a different feeling in your space. And you can also see different things showing up as the painting, as you sit with your painting and the different orientations. And so it's quite a beautiful feeling to know that the paintings are doing so much good for people who have them in their spaces. And there are other things happen with Sparkle, and that is that it's not just in a person that Sparkle works. It works over distance, as I've alluded to, because most of my sessions are on Zoom, just like we are here connecting. That's why even if you are on the replay of one of my podcasts with a Sparkle segment, or even just here with me, that frequency, Sparkle frequency, is present, because if you know anything about quantum physics, energy, there's no time or space, it's timeless. And so energy exists as it is, and there's no beginning, no end. All time exists at the same time. And for the group sessions, whether you're in one room together or whether you're distributed in different cities of or locations in a building, when we meet on Zoom, everybody has access to this frequency. And you may say, well, how is that even possible? Because there is such a thing as collective coherence, which produces bigger outcomes. And I can share a particular example. When I was at a conference, author conference at the Ritz Hotel, probably 2018-19, I was in a breakout session with a bunch of people, and then I decided to gift them with a Sparkle session. I was at the front of the room, and everybody was in a U shape around the tables. And as I was working, everybody, of course, everybody's closing their eyes and they're sitting back relaxing. One person was even lying on the floor. And then after that, as I did the debrief, there were people saying, well, I felt you were behind me, and I felt you behind me working on me. And one person said, I felt like you were actually touching me. And another person said, well, she told me that just before the Sparkle session started, that a real estate deal had fallen through. And then right after we finished the session, she had a call, and she came back into the room saying that the deal had gone through. The person had called her back, and she got the deal reinstated, and it was all good. And she says, I think your Sparkle worked. So what was interesting and what everybody realized in that session was that there were some people, and people would open their eyes once in a while, and they knew I never moved from the front of the room. I was working on everybody at the front of the room, but everybody experienced it differently. And some even felt that I was behind them. So how does that happen? And that is what Greg Braden, he talks about heart-brain coherence. He writes about it. He's written many books, and he also talks about entanglement of the field in groups, where everybody's energy gets entangled. And what happens with entrainment, what I found out in 2015 in November, when I went for a brain scan just for my own information on what was happening with my brain waves. Chris Wiley, he works with people with PTSD, I think definitely ADHD, and I went there for him to test where my brain waves were. And he said my brain waves back then even were so coherent. He said very high energy. And then when he looked at my brain scan, he said what was interesting was my left brain, which is the logical analytical brain, was totally flat. All the bars across all the different ranges of hertz, from 5 all the way up to 40, and gamma, right? Delta and gamma were all flat, meaning there was no activity going on in my brain because I was really tired. At that time, I was doing auditing work. And then he said, but the right brain, there was activity, which is the creative brain. So that was a benchmark where ground zero didn't work on anybody or anything. And then the second time he did the reading was me working on myself doing sparkle. So I was working on myself. And when that happened, he says, "Oh, well, there's more activity now in the left brain. The bars had come up a bit. The energy was still high. It was still coherent. You could still draw a line, a bell line, a curve, a straight line through all the dots on the graph." And he said that's definitely not normal. He said very so coherent, still high energy. And then the next test or experiment that I want him to run was for me working on someone else. And my sister was with me, but I've worked on her before. So I said, well, let me work on you, Chris. So I worked on Chris. And when I worked on him, he was in a really nice place. I said, finally, just lie down if you want. Lie down on your carpet. It's all good. And then afterwards, he was actually in a really happy place. And when he was looking at the graph, what he said was, oh, wow. What had happened was the left brain was totally balanced with the right brain in terms of all the bars. And then he said, oh, wow. And I said, what? He says, do you know what delta, that 40 hertz bar? And I said, yeah, but you tell me. And he says, well, delta is what all the gurus, all the people who meditate and they go on retreats, they want to get to delta. He says, your delta bar is double the height of all the other bars on your chart for your brain scan, this particular one with the left and right brain. And he said, and you did that all by yourself without my intervention. So what he said is that somehow when I do sparkle, it gets up into the delta frequency. And what that means, and what I had a knowing of from before that, was that the reason why when I work on people and they get feeling blissful, they get to the space of just no thought, they have this instant clarity, they have nothing going on, no worries, all the thoughts and the concerns and the things to do and the deadlines just evaporate out of their brain, their mind. They have nothing floating, no gremlins, no nattering going on their head when they have a serious sparkle session with me. They get to the space where they just want to stay there. Some people just tell me, I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay in this space. I don't even want to think. I just want to stay here because they've never experienced that feeling before in their life. And the reason is, and I had figured this out before I saw that chart, is when I work on my clients, they get entrained and pulled up to that frequency of delta. And they are able to, you can think of it as an artificial jump or a pull. So they stay there for a while, but they don't stay there forever. What my feeling is you come back down, but not all the way down to where you were before. You are elevated, but maybe you don't stay all the way up at that delta level. With the delta being that in that space, right? But it's unfortunate I didn't get a chance to check Chris's brainwaves at that time because he had an appointment. So I had asked him, can we check your, and he says no, he's late he has to drive somewhere for a date. So I couldn't do that validation there, but I'm pretty sure he would have been at delta as well, because as I said, he was feeling no pain. He was really in a very blissful state. So where are we with this now? There is this coherence, there is that pull, there is also the release of energies. When the heart is in coherence, things that are concerning they can get released. There's also other tools out there that I've used, and one is the etheric weaver, and these weavers are little crystals, double terminated crystals that come in different colors, and they're hung on a chain much like a pendulum, but they're a crystal if this is a pendulum. And it's a tool that the monk who is at the top of that organization, the Shambhala organization, and I think they're still in California, they make this as a way to sustain their monastery. So they sell these tools, and they say that the energy in these weavers is that of this head monk. There's a lot of people who swear that these tools healed them of different ailments, etc. And I've used these tools on people and been behind them, and they will swear that I am actually pulling them. They feel this pull back, and I'm not doing anything. It's just this. I'm not moving. All it is this tool that is generating an energy field, which then provides them with a healing experience. So there is one really important physics experiment that I want to share with you tonight, because for me this was an experiment I learned when I was in, I think, grade 1 high school in Jamaica, and this was a double slit experiment. And what this experiment proved is that there is an observer effect, and when the scientist is watching the two electrons, that the electrons are shot through double slits at one side of a room to a photographic plate on the other side of the room. If the scientist is watching the travels of the electrons across the room, when they look at the photographic plate on the other side of the room, what they see is a particle, just a dot. What's interesting is when they shoot the electron through the double slit and the observer looks away, and this electron gets to the photographic plate at the other side of the room, when they look at the photographic plate, there is a waveform, not a dot, a waveform. And what that means is that when you are the observer, when you are observing something, you have an effect on matter. You have an effect on electrons. So just think about that for a minute. When we are in a state where, say for example, we have a broken elbow or a twisted ankle, or we have an affliction, something wrong with us, and all we're doing is we're observing it, and we say, oh, my hand is broken, my wrist is sprained, or I have this whatever. And all you're thinking about is you're observing it, and you're seeing it, and you're feeling it. Well, you're observing it like the scientist was observing that electron going across the room, and you're going to end up with that particle to particle, because you're observing it, and your act of observing it and keeping it locked in that state of in your mind actually holds it in that reality of being that thing, that broken elbow or that sprained wrist or that ailment that you have. Now, if you can get past that and drop into a space of allowing, letting go of all resistance as to why you can't not have a broken wrist, or in one of my clients, he wasn't even a client, he was just someone who was in an office when I was saying good night, and he said, oh, I'm going for surgery tomorrow. And he said, well, I said, why are you going for surgery? He says, well, you see this arm? Actually, he didn't do this because he couldn't bend it. You see this arm? I'm going to get it fixed because I can't bend it, and I can't do things that men should be able to do. And it's been months, so I'm going to have surgery to fix it. He had bursitis in his arm, which I found out later. So I said, okay, well, if you want, we can play, because I do this energy work, right? And he says, homeopathic? I said, no, not homeopathic. It's something else that I do now. So we went to his office, and I just did this. He was sitting about 3 feet, 2 feet in front of me on a chair, and I was just standing and doing this because I'm 5 feet, I'm not that tall. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, because I had a plane to catch, he stood up. He went, "How did you do that?" and and I just laughed because somehow he was able to get that thought of his arm being locked in position and with the sparkle and with the energy and the frequency and this observer effect and just just this gift I have that I call sparkle. He was able to get his miracle, and he avoided surgery the next day. And so it was funny because I sent him an email because he lived in Fort St. John and I was in Edmonton. I said, well, what did the surgeon say when you called him? He says, he went to see him. He says, well, the surgeon says if you want, we can still have the surgery. And I said, well, what did you tell the surgeon? He says, I'll wait and see. Well, 10 years later, I reached out to Ken, and he, pardon me, you'll see his testimonial video he sent to me, and his arm has been good since that one little sparkle that he had in his office that evening. So um, this is the joy of sparkle, and we have. I guess what I'm trying to say here is, are you here? It's okay if you don't believe it, if you don't, this is not for you. It's okay. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but if this is something that you're looking for an option to something you're dealing with, what I'm here to say is there is an option of getting the energetic with the the strategy of sparkle and embodying embodied alignment with where you want to go. It's just the will, the open-mindedness to try something different, and the science is there. It's just people don't usually look up the science that supports this kind of stuff because it's just that, it has this thing about being woo-woo. But I found out it's not woo-woo because that's why I stayed away from it for so long, because I didn't take the time to check into the science and actually read up on what is out there and what is cannot be explained. I mean, that's why people don't share how I help them figured out, because they don't know how to explain what it is that they experience or how it is that it happened. So it's easier to just say, oh, go see so and so who does massage or who does that, because that's explainable. But how do you explain that I do this? Or I just call you on the phone, or you just send me a text and I say, okay, I got you. And then you experience physiological, emotional, or some kind of shift that you've been trying to get rid of for years and you haven't been able to get rid of. You've just been telling stories and it's done nothing. You just keep on telling the stories and hope that it will go away. But with sparkle, I've said it before, you don't need to tell stories. You don't have to repeat or make up stories. You don't have to know why. I don't have to know why. I just connect with the energy and the knowing, and we play, and I see what shows up, and it's just a matter of that. So having said that, what I'd like to do is just I promised that I would do a very quick sparkle for anybody who wanted to come on to the replay. So let's just do a really quick sparkle right now. And what I'd like you to do is just get comfortable. If you're seeing the replay, it's fine. Just get comfortable and just connect. And I would just, if you will, get comfortable by just moving in your seat and allowing yourself to relax your muscles. Feel the seat under your bum, the ground under your feet, and maybe close your eyes gently and start breathing in deeply. Visualize, as your eyes are closed, this beautiful tube of light coming from the heavens, with this silver blue, gold speckled, glistening light streaming in. Allow it in through your crown chakra, the top of your head. Allow that energy to come through and move wherever it needs to move in your body. And then just allow yourself to welcome, be open to blessings, all the light and energy that's coming through. And then as you breathe out everything that's not serving you, any feelings of stress or disappointment, frustration, any feelings of anger or concern, guilt, shame, blame, whatever, just allow it to leave, because you don't need that. Allow yourself to forgive yourself for anything that you blamed yourself for or held yourself responsible for. And maybe it was or maybe it wasn't, but you've learned from that lesson, correct? So allow yourself to forgive yourself for whatever that is, and forgive others also, because those things, they actually weigh down on you and they don't serve your well-being. So just, if you would, allow yourself to forgive and forget the emotion, but not necessarily the situation, because understanding what happened does help keep you safe in many circumstances. But the emotion, that angst, that negativity, that negative feeling of upset, that doesn't help you to get in tune with your heart and open up your heart to healing or to love or to receiving or to anything. So allow that, all those negative feelings, to leave right now, through the window, through the door, through the cord at the bottom of your feet, to your very own special crystal. That may be quartz or rose quartz, amethyst, carnelian, fluorite, whatever it may be, just, or all of them. Just allow that energy, if it needs to go down that cord at the bottom of your feet to your very own special healing crystal, allow it to go there where it gets grounded with Mother Earth healing energy, sparkling it with nutrients and grounding and all the wisdom of Mother Earth. And just allow it, once it's cleansed, to go back up the cord, the other foot, to join this beautiful cosmic energy that's moving around you right now as it circles through and through you. Just allow yourself to breathe in all the goodness, all the blessings, all the nurturing, the nutrients that you need through the heavens. To allow it to go wherever it needs to go in your body, to sprinkle and sparkle it with love and blessings and healing. And just allow yourself to breathe in all the goodness and all the blessings that are there for you right now with Sparkle. Just allow yourself to get energized right now. Allow yourself to take in this little extra energy and know that it's there, available to you. So that is a mini sparkle session for you. Hopefully you had some feeling with that. And with sparkle, sometimes, as I said, some people do not feel anything with their first or even their ninth sparkle. It just depends. on how open your feeling body is to energy. And it doesn't mean that you didn't get anything. It just means that your conscious system didn't register anything. But that doesn't mean that you didn't get sparkled. Some people may have experienced lightness or sense of heat or tingling in different parts of the body, or some people see colors or images showing up when they have a sparkle. And sometimes it's a release of tension. So if you had, I forgot to tell you, but if you had checked in with your body at the start of the show and you noticed your level of tension in your body, even if you didn't really register that, but if you normally are tense and you notice you aren't tense, likely is that this being present during this podcast and also during this sparkle segment has helped your body to relax, because that happens often with my clients. More often than not, their body tension evaporates in their muscles and they get up, they feel lighter, they feel happier, and their face sometimes changes, because that's what happens when you are able to release things that are weighing down on you with the feelings and emotions that are not serving your highest self. So with that, I'd like to just end this podcast with where we went today. We went from magnets to sharks, from paintings to group and boardroom settings. The science is catching up to what is there in terms of what all these different quantum healing modalities have to offer you, as you're searching for different things to help yourselves through with issues in your lives and in your work and in your relationships. Whether we call it biofields or coherence or morphic resonance or the observer effect, the truth is simply that everything is energy. You know, SparkleChi just helps you to remember your original frequency, because I feel that everybody, there's a sparkle within you and you need to just get it reignited so you can get to your spark, your frequency. And when that happens, anything is possible. So Tesla did experiments with frequency and vibration in relationship to health, although he mainstream records show that he created and he was fascinated with giving people free access to free electricity. He was also fascinated, I think, by using energy as medicine and resonance, healing with resonance and frequency. Homeopathy is another beautiful bridge with energy healing, because it's energy medicine accepted by millions globally now. And if you do a self-study, you'll see that it actually is based on energy. So um, again, Einstein, said everything is energy and vibration. And so I'd like to leave you here today to say, I'm not trying to convince you to do anything, just to open up to what's possible. And if this is for you, that's okay. If it's not, that's okay too. But this is what I'm here to serve the world with. And Sparkle is beautiful. It is gentle. It can do things that I'm amazed at. And my clients who've experienced it are amazed at too. And as I said, many of them don't know how to explain it. And so it's that thing that is one of the reasons why I put together this episode, to try and give it a little bit of explanation in terms of what you as in the world can wrap your heads around and do more research on. But again, for me, I really am happy that I had my accidents with my ski slope accident, because that opened me up to actually go looking for the woo woo, the matrix energetics, energetics, and all these other ones that I did before I realized that I had my own gift of sparkle. And perhaps that's where you're at now, but why wait until something traumatic happens? Why not get your space to a sense of space of instant clarity, to that ability to tap into what your real true purpose is in life, by getting that to that delta state, to get to that space of feeling light and joyful, and just have your worries melt away, perhaps, or the physical symptoms of something that has been nagging at you, that you've not been able to nip in the bud or get through to. Why not try Sparkle? You can find out more at BCEO of You, and because that's my 90-day signature program, where I go into how do you get to healing yourself and getting your body under your own control of your mind, because your mind is a powerful thing. There's also, for those who've had Sparkle and you want to get a reset, there is what I just opened up, is the Sparkle Reset Activation, but you have to have had Sparkle before, and that is $97 for a 15-minute segment. And then there's also the 4-pack Sparkle sessions, and there is a group team Sparkle activation, where if you have a company or a group of family, or a team where you want to share in a Sparkle experience, that I offer at a much more accessible rate for people, because it's in a group and it's priced accordingly. So that's all for now, and until the next time, I'm Michelle Holang, host of the Sparkle Experience Show, where you can get access to Sparkle, to get instant clarity, and to get your answers to your questions, and perhaps to your problems. So that's all for now. Until we see you the next time, have yourself a beautiful rest of the week. We'll see you again on the Sparkle Experience Show.